Just answering questions with waptek. Here we go. I'm going to give the answers first. That's the whole point, because if you looked up this video because you had a question, this will answer it. This is also in response to people who are just asking questions, which is a literary device called being bullshit. But anyway, today's stack of people are not being critical and being asshats about it. They're critiquing my videos and or the content. This is incredibly, amazingly unusual. So here we go. Both the letter I and J were used interchangeably by scribes to express the sound of both of the vowels and others. Language is not consistent, it evolves over time. The consonant, vowels and the consonant. It wasn't until 1524, an Italian Renaissance grammar Nazi named Gian Giorgio, probably because the sound J is in his name, known as the father of the letter J, decided to, of course, have G there because you can spell Jeff with a G in Britain. That's very common. Gilf made a clear designation between I and J, even though that seems really obvious. And back in the days of the Bible, when it was written, there's a lot of implied vowels, and these sounds were treated as vowels at sometimes. A, E, I, O, U, sometimes Y and W. W? Yeah, W is considered a vowel sometimes. But you didn't know that. Anyway, here we go. Selective fire means the capability of a weapon, yes, we're totally different subject, a weapon to be adjusted to fire in semi-automatic, really fully automatic loading, but not auto-firing. Burst mode, which does auto-fire and auto-loading in a specific number of increments, and full automatic firing mode. That's what selective or select fire means. It doesn't matter if an industry term has been mutating it, in the same way that the expression or term assault rifle and assault weapon originally started off being marketing terms to sell guns, and then ended up being stuck in our legal system somehow. The evolution of it doesn't really matter as long as we all know what we're talking about. When you talk about machine gun, that does not include, by legal definition, a Gatling gun, because it's manually loading and manually firing. It does not do anything after you pull the trigger. In fact, you don't have to in some cases, except do what you tell it to do on the next crank. It's a way of triggering it. So anyway, also, what the hell is a revolver? I mean, you pull the trigger, it automatically goes, well, it rotates a cylinder. It's a completely different thing. There's lots of those. There's even a type of reciprocating repeating arm that isn't a machine gun but can go full auto. There's also one of them that has no moving parts and is automatic because it operates like a Roman candle. Next. Firearms are also defined by the type of firearm action used. Bolt action, revolving action. There's hundreds of them that have been tried and failed and thrown out and brought back in and end up being sometimes just a component used in a gas system. Going through patents will make you go insane. That's another thing I should point out. The M4, which everyone talks about in certain ways, Product Improvement Program, Phase 1 converted and replaced the regular M4s with the M4A1, which could be fully automatic. It had a heavier barrel, and it was made to do full automatic. There's an entire video series on the net, but you can look up how hard it is to make a really good automatic firing weapon, and a really good semi-automatic, and a really good non-automatic anything. You should watch it. I used to have a playlist, but YouTube says I can't have playlists because I triggered them by having playlists of favorite music videos and shit. Don't ask me why. So anyway, here we go. The M4 has semi-automatic 3-round burst firing modes as well. And the M4A has semi-automatic, fully automatic as well. So they're different. One of them lacked fully auto. Okay. The M16 is a family of rifles adapted from the Armalite AR-15, which the name was then sold to Colt, and you can go buy one. But the original M16 rifle was a automatic rifle and later semi-automatic and full auto. So it started off full auto. Now, we can't use the word machine gun, we can't use anything clear because politics, sales brochures, And both sides, Republican conservatives and Democratic liberals, will not use terminology that lacks ambiguity. I hate the word semi-automatic. The other term that's completely accepted and is very descriptive is auto-loading, because it isn't auto-firing. It's not semi-anything. It either does or does not do an action. It doesn't half-ass do it. Unless you broke it or you ran out and it left the bolt open. Next. Auto-firing should be the proper term. It auto-fires when you hold down the trigger. It fires the next round. And if it doesn't 3-round burst, then this should be, maybe we should have designations for these things. We do. But anyway, now I'm going to move on to the questions and or assertions or statements. I treat questions and comments as being the same thing, mostly because people tend to think that phrasing things in double jeopardy mode is okay. One thing that many say is there was no J or J sound back in some time in the past. This is true and not true. It depends on which language you're dealing with. And also, it's based on Latin at the time. There were more than a dozen languages in contact with each other at the time, from 300 BC to 380 approximately, that most of the accepted works of the Bible were probably written. And if you're not aware of it, there is the apocryphal collection of stuff that is not considered officially part of the Bible, even though it obviously was part of all the scriptures those days, that people never talk about. It's a collective work. Basically, people did a consensus version or concordance version and tried to make it work, and that became the first iteration. Then the second iteration, because someone simply wanted to divorce somebody. That's a long story. Next, the Black Hebrew cult is really about killing white people. I can't tell if it's a question or answer or statement, so I'll give you this. Not all Nazis. I'm not kidding. There are I'm going to play Hitler advocate here. There are Black Hebrew Israelites. That's usually what they call themselves. There's a bunch of other combinations, but that's about right. There's some of them that literally just believe what they've been told, or believe that they really do have this heritage or history to themselves, but they don't hate anybody. They just think, no, we've been lied to all our lives, and that's it. And that some of them even cite really good logic to it. I mean, they're not they're not crazy or anything. They just simply say, in the end, didn't we all kind of originate from someplace? And if they believe what they've been told and believe what has been written down in the past about the origins of man, that are agreed upon, mostly in the Mediterranean area, yeah, they all come from the same origin. They just don't know exactly where it is. And also Adolf Hitlerites. Yeah, I'm going to bring them up. Some of them literally believe, for whatever reason, that they're better off staying within one race group or another for reproduction and being around each other. And to their credit, they actually point out that when people are not taught their heritage, they adopt each other as part of their heritage, America, and don't have any of these divides. And they acknowledge that. I mean, there are some reasonable people out there you might call a racist, but they would prefer to have everybody separated by race. I don't agree with it, but they're not actually Nazis. Even though they adopt some of the stuff that was thought of at the time, they have a sort of logic and rationale to it, but they are not in what I would call a cult. Now, I'm not trying to defend the cult idiots that you see protesting, throwing shit on the internet, on the comment sections, or in person. But I will say that some of them aren't like that. And I also like to point out there are some people who do actual Second Amendment and whatever audits who are being dead bang serious, pun intended, and not actually trying to cause any problems or trigger anybody, pun intended. They're actually just trying to start a discussion. But they don't go around with video cameras and do it. They actually just walk up to people and discuss the subject. That's about it. It's like a guy a minute ago, he was clearly carrying a case for holding a breakdown version of a pool cue. But it had written on the side, yes, my other pool cue case is my rifle. Because the case becomes, it's, the joke about he carries a violin around, the case becomes the buttstock. He had a little picture of it. But it's the other case. Apparently he has a gun carried in the back of his car and has to have him identified. It also cited the law in the state of Oregon, County of Multnomah, and City of Portland. I thought that was just kind of cool. Don't Google that. You're going to find weird, very weird. Anyway, here. It is true that the original design of the AR-15, a 223 version of the original AR-10, 308, was designated as a select fire capable assault rifle with a 20-inch barrel. Full auto in this case. Okay, now we'll go back to that. The original design of the AR-15. Okay. Armalite went bankrupt before either AR prototypes could be brought to production. Well, yeah, no, depends on what you define it, but okay, cool. Acquired by Colt, who eventually produced the M16 for military and law enforcement exclusively. And then he says, select fire is an umbrella term encompassing any fire rate requiring one pull of the trigger mechanism, producing more than one round fired, ammunition provided. That's not actually true. It means it has to, according to the definition, even, I looked everywhere I could find. Let me reread the definition. And yeah, I'm quoting the one from Wikipedia, but I also checked their sources, but I could be wrong. You can go ahead and prove me wrong. Select fire means the capability of a weapon to be adjusted to fire one at a time when you pull the trigger. I'm going to use explicit language. Several times, but not continually, or fully, continually. So it could be continually when you pull the trigger, only fire once, or only fire a specific number of times, all three, and or. So it's inclusive, not exclusive. So you could be right and could be wrong. It's an interesting thing to bring up. But again, let's continue. Therefore, select fire defines both auto and 3-round burst, and also semi-auto, aka one shot, one pull, which repeats the release of the M4A1 and M4A2 respectively. Neither the M16 or M4 are capable of sustained full auto fire in any comparable volume to that was originally classified or commonly known as machine gun. You may be correct about that. Cool. However, somebody could make them do it. It could be converted. Parts could be transferred. Wouldn't last. You can watch them melt down if you wish. Due to obviously needing to utilize belt-fed ammunition, no, there were other formats. There really were. You didn't have to use belt-fed. Barrel density design and material not capable of withstanding the thermal stress and continuous fire. That's correct. As far as I know. I only know what I know. Standard M4 14-inch barrels are considered out of military spec after 800 rounds total at any fire rate due to loss of accuracy. Group mileage may vary. The 800 round number that you're quoting there, I've seen almost immediately posted and immediately contradicted by people in the military saying it depended on how fast it was fired, whether it was whether you fired it one shot or another or whatever. M4 standard? M4 is a group. You have to specify exactly which one. So that's kind of ambiguous. But I've seen that 800 round thing, but that's not what I found in practice when people look up any of this or actually use them. So I don't know. M16 20-inch barrels were or are better quality and are known to last longer if not being subjected to continuous fire. Yeah, okay. Effectively, M4s are known to be responsible for contributing to the death of servicemen in that they shortchange the ballistic coefficient of the NATO, a sloppy version of the 223. This just sounds like hater mode, but okay. Compared to the M16, the semi-auto term described one trigger pull per round and is consistent across all firearms manufacturers in 90 percentile. But it's deliberately ambiguous and it gets politicized, so I'd object to it. And the fact is that the other term, auto-loading or auto-reloading, which is extremely explicit, eliminates your ability to lie about saying, well, I thought you meant fully auto or whatever. It's like, no. The reason I say this is because this has turned into something people use as wiggle room. It's not auto unless unless you specify what auto. It is either auto-firing or auto-loading or auto-nothing. And something in between, like a certain number of shots per trigger pull. Unless people are being non-ambiguous, I will correct them for deliberately introducing ambiguity. I'm here to destroy ambiguity. I'm not going to let you neener neener. Thank you very much for the critique. This was actually friendly critique time. I don't get this very often, so it's kind of cool. But anyway, as for the word history, I cut and pasted this from a dictionary page, and a few other things are from other sources. But mostly I just said, if the Wikipedia article has it accurate, I'll just cut and paste it because it pisses off people when I quote Wikipedia almost verbatim. That and the fact that it's amazing they get it right once in a while. Thanks for watching. Have a good day. Good luck with that.